Good afternoon, everyone. So wonderful to be here. I'm Cammie Ghibertini, Senior Vice President and the Director of Women Entrepreneurs at Valley National Bank. But I'm excited to have the privilege to introduce our keynote speaker this afternoon. I read her bio, and I'm going to read a little skinny of her bio because, but I hope everybody took an opportunity because we are very blessed to have her with us today, and I'm really excited personally to be able to hear her story. I gotta put my glasses on. Magie Cook is the president and CEO of Dare to Defy, which she founded to help encourage others to defy limitations placed on them. Maggie is also an entrepreneur and creator of All Natural Fresh Salsa and Dips, a food manufacturing company and distribution across the United States, has won numerous business awards, including the Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award by the Small Business Administration in 2009. And in 2014, Maggie was awarded the Novel Entrepreneurial Prize in Mexico by the Voice of
Michoacán.
Okay, for being the youngest and the most successful female entrepreneur. So our keynote speaker this afternoon, if you could help me welcome Magdalena de la Cruz Cook Garcia, Magie Cook.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Winella Ivax, and I'm an environmental engineering PhD student here at USF, and I am absolutely pleased today to be able to moderate this discussion with our keynote, and I hope to be able to help guide her to share aspects of her story that will encourage us to keep evolving and becoming the best persons that we can potentially be. So, Maggie, you know I've tried to learn as much as I could about you before we started today, and I'd just like to share briefly parts of your stories that really resonated with me. So I believe you're a visionary, an immigrant, a proud Latina with Native American heritage. You're an entrepreneur, an entrepreneur, a businesswoman, an author, and a life coach. So for our audience here who are going to get to know you over the next 40 minutes, who is Magie Cook? How would you describe yourself in 2 minutes or less?
Okay, that's great. No limit. Well, you know, I've been through so many things in life, and I've had so many experiences since growing up in Mexico, and we're going to go in detail a little later. But where I am right now is basically I am a life coach, a speaker, a business coach, and I help people that are stuck, that feel like they are blocked from success. Anybody that needs a breakthrough, this is what I do. I've done it for myself. I've been through so many things, and I believe it's giving me leverage to be able to help millions of people, and I've done it for 11 years. I just never did this the way that I'm doing it now because I was running my business. So now I'm doing this full time, and that's why I'm here today, so thank you.
All right. Thank you. So from Ms. Ghibertini's introduction, we've learned you've built and sold businesses. In 2014, your award-winning all-natural salsa and dips was sold to a company called Garden Fresh, which was then later bought that same year by Campbell's company for $231 million. So to begin the discussion, I'd like for you to just share with us your journey from arriving in the U.S., speaking little to no English, to studying at the University of Charleston, to building a multi-million-dollar business with just $800. And as you reflect, just give us an idea about what was the value of your college degree throughout this journey.
Yes, thank you. So I grew up in an orphanage in Mexico, and my journey starts there, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it later. And I grew up in such a rough environment that I wanted to get out of there. I wanted to do something with my life. So I got into basketball, and I trained basketball all the time. I didn't have a coach. I just saw Michael Jordan play, literally. So I got really, really good. I played in the dirt court in the orphanage, blindfolded. I had one of the little kids with me, helping me, right, left, make sure I don't fall over the heel. But I got really good, and I got to the championships in high school, and I was the, how do you say in English, the
Best player?
Yeah, the person that represented the team. And
the captain.
Yeah, the captain. And el capitán.
El capitán.
And I got recruited by the Mexican national team to play basketball for them. And I remember waiting for about 3 months for them to call. And one day I went out and played football with my brothers, American football, and I broke my collarbone. And they called me 3 days later, and my dad, he was a doctor, he looked at me and he said, "Your dreams are over." And you know what I said? I've always believed that when something bad happens to you, that means that something's better it's gonna happen to you. And if you have that mentality in life and in business, it's gonna empower you to actually bring forth, attract more and better things for you.
So you came to the U.S. How did you come to the U.S.?
So my parents took a bus. I have 68 brothers and sisters, and I grew up with another 200 other kids that came in the orphanage where I grew up in, and they took a bus and toured the United States for funding for the orphanage, and we got invited to stop at a picnic in Charleston, West Virginia, and there happened to be the coach at the University of Charleston. There's a basketball court, and she saw me play, and she said to my dad, "I want her to come play for me on a scholarship." See what I'm talking about? The better? So that's why I'm here today. Or I would be in Mexico doing who knows what, basically. So I went to college. I graduated with a degree in interior design. And after I graduated college, I read a statistic that said that 95% of the people with my degree would either have to go out of state or not be able to find a job. So I got very afraid, and I went out and tried to get jobs with all the interior design places in town, and I couldn't get a job. So I was basically got out of the dorms, and I had a white station wagon. I called it my Maggie Waggy. And I drove around with that station wagon for about like a month or so, and I was sleeping in parking lots, and then one day the poor thing just blew up. And, flames, and the hood came up, and, being from Mexico, you don't know these things, right? So I just left on the side of the road, and I was like flaming, and I just took my bags and started just walking, and I literally lived in the streets for about 3 months. It was a wintry time, about 3 months, and that's when somebody found me. Somebody that recognized me found me in the streets and offered me a place to stay, and right after that happened, and I feel like the reason why I became homeless is because my father, when I was growing up, told me that I would never amount to anything, that I would die in prison and with AIDS, exactly his words. And I don't even remember what I did, but I didn't tell anybody about my situation because I didn't want him to feel like, my ego was like, I don't want his prophecy to be fulfilled, right? So I went through all of this, and then 4 weeks later, I got to enter a salsa competition for the state of West Virginia. I got invited to enter, and I won by unanimous vote. I beat everybody, of course, Mexican salsa, right? Pico de gallo. So I won, and there, everybody wanted the product. Where can we get this? And I'm like, I don't have any money, And there was a guy standing, when you have somebody watching, but you can tell their presence is there, but you're not really watching them. So he was standing in the corner all this time, and he looked at me and came to me after I stopped speaking with people, and he says, I see you have a fire in you, and I want to do something for you. And he reached out to his wallet and pulled out $800 and says, I want you to start your business with this, but I want you to pay for it someday. And I never knew about that guy again, didn't even know his name. I was just like, oh my gosh. And I didn't know how to start a business. I didn't know how to go about it. Google was my main research source. Everybody that I tried to call, I couldn't help me. Even the Small Business Administration, I was helping them more than they could help me. Seriously. And so I just started the journey, started the salsa company. And I remember I had a list of 100 stores to call, from the smallest to the largest. And about 90 stores told me no. And I was very fortunate because I just kept going. And you need perseverance in business. You need to keep going no matter what. My best friends told me to quit because I wasn't making any money. Other manufacturers that I was asking about how to get in the market would tell me to quit. So you just keep going, and then a breakthrough happened. So after I called 90 stores and they told me, we don't want your fresh salsa, because nobody understood what fresh salsa was, which was a niche. You just have to keep pushing for that if you have a niche as a businesswoman. And finally, I decided to turn the list upside down, and to me, in my mind, the largest supermarket was Whole Foods. So I called them and I said, hey, my name is Maria Magdalena de la Cruz Garcia. I have a pico de gallo salsa, and I think you'd love it. And they called me the next day. I was literally parked on the side of the street. And Eric, he says, this is Eric, we're with Whole Foods. We want to know more about you. When can we try your products? I was like, oh my gosh. I said, when do you meet? He says, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. So I literally made salsa all night, packed up my little Honda Civic, drove about 7 hours to get there, came into this huge room, all men, and this little girl with little boxes of salsa, lots of boxes of salsa, and they were just looking at me. The presence was unbelievable. They opened the product, they started tasting it, they were talking about themselves, and I'm like, what are they saying? And finally, Eric stands up and says, we want your products. And I said, oh my gosh. That time I was making about 250 pounds of salsa for friends. And I said, how much do you want? He says, we need 10,000 pounds of salsa a week. I didn't have any money, but I got a contract with Whole Foods, and I convinced friends that this is my contract. I need 20 grand for cost of goods. You know what cost of goods are? Containers, labels, product. And within a week, they'll pay me 40 grand, and I'll give you 20 grand back. So they allowed me to borrow that money. I made 40 grand, and then I used 20 grand. Paid 20 grand, I used 20 grand to keep going. And the company grew so big, and then Walmart came, they called me, wanted our products, and this is when really took it from the over the million mark.
Just listening to your story is so fascinating. But we're going to pivot slightly right now and talk a little bit more about your childhood, because I know those experiences have molded you into the person that you are today. I'd like to read a quote from your book called Mindful Success, and I know you have the book for sale outside Ballroom B. And it says, I will always remember what it feels like to be hungry. My mother always argued with my father. You need to feed our kids first. They need food, shoes, and clothes. We never have enough money to survive. So we know you grew up in Mexico in an orphanage run by or managed by your parents. Can you just share with us in like about 4 minutes summary of what those experiences were like for you?
Well, it was certainly not a traditional, home. We had girls' dorms, guys' dorms, big dining rooms, and we had our name tags. Our spoons were named, our cups were named. We made our food, 1 week the girls would cook and the guys would clean and vice versa. So it was very organized, and my dad was in the military, so he had us marching up and down like in line. But there was a lot of times my dad was a doctor, and a lot of times when he received money, none from the government in Mexico, received money from the States, from friends and churches, and he often used that money to feed the poor or treat their medical illnesses, that we were left with nothing. Very often, we would go out to 2 weeks to 3 weeks with no food. And I remember it hurts. Like, I don't know if you've ever been that long without food, but your stomach hurts to the point that I was able to get with some of my brothers and became hunters. We would actually go into the mountains. I still have my hunting knife. And we would use these big spotlights, and we made these nets, and we would actually put the light, we would catch liebre, which is like a bigger type of rabbit, iguanas, armadillos, and so we would jump from the trees, and we would catch it, and we would eat it when we were out there, and that's how we would go in groups of 5, sometimes 7, and that's how we grew up, and it was a very tough situation. There wasn't the emotional support, because there were so many kids, but I understood because a lot of those kids came from worse needs. It needed more attention from our parents, but that's basically how it was tough. It was really tough. It was emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually tough. I had to make my own shoes out of pieces of tire and cow skin. All these things that I've experienced.
So although it was tough, I know your escape was dreaming.
Yes.
You're a dreamer.
Yes.
Why did you dream? How was dreaming powerful for you?
Dreaming for me was an escape from the suffering. And part of me helping, the reason I love helping people is because I've been in a really tough situation where I've experienced so much suffering that I want to teach others how not to suffer. And there's so many ways, we all suffer in different ways, whether you realize it or not. And some to certain, worse degrees than others. But my escape was, I was the boxer or the Rambo or the Indian, and I would make my little bows and arrows. And I would literally go to the mountains, and nobody would know about me for like a day or two. And I was really young. And my escape was being a superhero, my own superhero, getting out of there. And that was my mentality. It was my most happiest moments, even though I was able to shift from that suffering. And that's an opportunity that we also have in life. When you're suffering, you have the opportunity to create something to not suffer. And that's what I really coach about.
I think that's a great springboard for our next question, creating opportunities for others not to suffer. I know as part of your business model, you created a movement called Pound for Pound in 2011, and this was in response to one of your adopted brothers and sisters calling you to tell you, Maggie, we've only eaten sugar and lettuce for the last 2 weeks. Can you help us? So can you give us a bit more information about what is Pound for Pound and why philanthropy is such an important part of your business model?
It is because it allows to help ease the suffering. But I've learned a very important lesson that you don't not only just give money, you also educate, because when you can educate, you are able to uplift them to uplift themselves. And that's the most powerful thing that I've learned in life and in business. But Pound for Pound was created out of necessity, and it was something that they were going through that I went through. And I decided for every pound of salsa we would make, 1 pound of food would be donated to hungry children in Mexico. And we did some of it here in the United States.
Excellent. And I know you're all about creating opportunities to help others so you can leverage your resources. How else have you invested the wealth that you've gained in service of others?
Well, I remember that story that I was telling you about the guy that gave me the $800. Well, I've been able to do that for entrepreneurs. I've been able to give $800 and $1,000. It's probably a little bit more than the inflation of that. So I've been able to do that and help people start their speaking business or poetry business, or their books, shampoo business. So I've been able to do that in that way. But also one of the biggest things to me for giving is personal giving, actually in person. So we actually, my youngest brother and I, Josue, rescued 31 orphan children from the Mexican drug cartel about 2 years ago. And we were literally there, and I had them in a room, and I slept outside on the concrete floor, and I had a 38 special, you know what that is, right? And my brother had a Mexican-made 38 special as a gun, caliber 38. And my youngest brother had a Chisa, which is a handmade shotgun, 22 gauge, and that's all we had. But I also I let people know, because we were told that 50 people were going to come in and take over the orphanage, and my brother's wife had been taken for sex trafficking, that's what you call it,
Yes.
for 10 years. And we had gotten 2 little kids that were 2 and 4. They were severely raped by, people like that. So I was not going to let that happen. And luckily, I was able to reach the Mexican federales in the military, the comandante, and we had their support in case anything would happen. But we were on guard, and I let the whole town know. We're in the mountain, in the middle of nowhere in Mexico, in the orphanage, and I let the villagers know we're armed. So nobody knew that. We're armed and ready, and people know me down there. They know my character. So, I wanted to do that. And to me, that was the biggest thing that I've done as far as being able to be physically present to give.
Thank you. So we're going to... In this room, we have about 200 students from across the USF system from varied disciplines. I know many of us struggle with self-doubt and fear about navigating this stage of our lives. And Maggie, I know in your book you said that discovering your purpose is the driving force for all your dreams, goals, and future accomplishments. So how do you define purpose, and how would you advise all the students in this room to go about finding their purpose?
Well, there's a lot of people that say there's one way of finding your purpose, and I don't think there's just one way. There's many different ways because everybody's different. For me, perhaps the way of finding my purpose was ask myself the question, what did I suffer the most that I was able to not suffer, that I can help other people not suffer? See what I'm saying? So what makes you tick? So you should ask yourself all these questions. You should constantly ask yourself quality questions, because with a quality question, you get a quality answer. And that's how really you discover and find yourself.
I know as we were discussing this before today, you told me about the 6 basic human needs and how those help you guide you along your purpose as your life evolves. Can you share a bit of information on that?
Yes, it's basically what I use for life coaching. And there's six basic human needs, and everybody has them. But some people are, their top is one, or this other person's top is another one. So everybody's got 6 basic human needs, and the first one is for certainty. The next one is for uncertainty. The third one is for significance. The fourth one is for love and connection. The fifth one is for growth. The more spiritual one, and contribution. This is the sixth one. The last one more for spiritual needs. So finding what drives you, and they can change as you evolve as a businesswoman, as you go on taking on life. So these are the things that once you discover what these needs are, then you can address those and actually strengthen. Sometimes when you're lacking something, when you're lacking one of your basic human needs, you suffer. But when you recognize that, then you can figure out what you can do to not suffer.
Great, thank you. Can you please repeat the 6 basic human needs?
Certainty, comfort, uncertainty. It also variety with that one. Then comes significance. Then comes love and connection. Then growth and contribution. If you'd like to learn more, you can visit my website, MaggieCook.org, and you can reach out to me, and I can share more with you about that if you'd like, because they're very powerful. It's really what defines you at the moment. Because we are, as spiritual beings, evolving all the time. Your needs are going to change constantly. So you're always going to change your basic human needs based on where you are in life. So it's really good to understand that. Thank you for asking.
All right. Thank you for the question. We'll get to the Q&A shortly. So Maggie, I know you're a firm believer of setting mindful goals to maximize your effectiveness for your health and success. And I know also in your book, you've encouraged persons to write 100 professional and personal lifetime goals.
Yes.
I've tried that exercise and I found it exhilarating as well as overwhelming. I know I don't need to get everything done all at once, and that I'll need to balance all of these competing demands over the course of my life. So I know you've overcome depression and other challenges in order to stick on track with your goals. So can you share some tips with us that have helped you to balance all of the demands that life has thrown at you?
I think when in writing goals and affirmations, who does goals here? Affirmations? These are very powerful because they're defining moments in your life where you set yourself to manifesting something greater. The most important thing about goals and affirmations is asking one simple question, and that is, what is my ultimate outcome? Because when you know what your ultimate outcome is, your outcome will be here, even though you have 100 goals. You could be worried down here, but if you focus up here, you might not have to do 3 of those goals to get to where you want to go. You see what I'm saying? When you focus on your ultimate outcome, it gives you the fire to actually accomplish and get there. Whether, worrying about everything else. And a lot of people worry about other things. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So, Maggie, your rags to riches story is popular for your success in the salsa industry, but you've transitioned full-time now to living a life of service through your company, Dare to Defy. So what are some of the projects you're involved in right now, and what's next for Magie Cook?
Well, this is next. I'm a speaker, a motivational speaker, public speaker, and a life coach and a business coach. So this is my true passion is helping people create breakthroughs. That's really what my passion is. And it gets tempting. I created a company called Adrenalite. It's a drink, Not alcoholic drink, but probably even right now. But yes, so I tend to kind of feel like get that excitement of, being the creator of something. But you always create. I think the most important point of creation is when you get to recreate yourself and grow yourself. And I think because ultimately you are the product. You are the most valuable product, not some drink or some salsa. I've always known this salsa has just been a stepping stone to something bigger, because I'm a product, and I'm a product that can help, people create breakthroughs, and that's basically what I do now.
You also told me that you're doing a new all-natural company.
Yes, that's the Adrenalite.
Oh, okay, the
It's
Adrenalite.
basically juices with, adrenals in your body. It's like lymphatic system basically drains the nasty stuff in your body. So it's basically with essential oils. So fresh, cold pressed, raw, organic juices with essential oils. So that's basically what that is.
Cool. So we're gonna take a slight break now, and we're gonna open up to our audience for some questions. So my Wise Advisory Council member, Shari, is gonna come up to field some of those questions.
Sounds great.
Hi there. All right. My name is Shari. I'm a senior in College Public Health. If you tweet at us at USFWLT, I have it right here, and it's going to be a live Q&A with Twitter. And meanwhile, I'm going to ask one of the most wanted questions from you. What advice would you give your younger self?
That's a very good question. I told her to be tough on me. I've actually done this, and I've actually done this through meditation. And I did this, and it was very powerful, and I maybe suggest you do it for yourselves, is that I've meditated and seen myself as a little girl, but also as me, and gone to that little girl and say, I'm sorry, and just hug that little girl. And I don't really need advice, because I feel like all of my life experiences have made me who I am today. But I do want to say I'm sorry, because I wouldn't want anybody else to suffer like I've suffered. Thank you. See, she was tough.
So from that question, knowing everything that you know, all the struggles, all the challenges, all the issues that you encountered throughout the years, what would be one single, let's say, sentence that you would give for people who are doubting themselves and becoming entrepreneurs, starting their business, applying to that graduate program?
Well, every person's needs are going to be different. I would say be a dreamer. Don't let that suffering stop you. What could you do to dream in a way that to see yourself as that person, successful person that you want to be? I believe that when you dream like that, you disassociate with that suffering, and if you could just continue to focus with that, with what your ultimate outcome is, then you become that ultimate outcome.
Thank you. So one of the questions is that when did you find out that, when was your aha moment that this is going to be a business and this is going to go beyond my dreams? And well, you were thinking that if there was a moment of that, were you at the moment, or were you constantly thinking, what I don't have right now? What do I need? What am I lacking? What's going to be my next step?
That wasn't even in my mind. All I wanted to do was succeed. I was broke, paycheck to paycheck. I started working back then after that happened. But when you don't let your head control your life, let your heart and your gut and just do it, this is when you truly just go after your passion. You have to have that burning desire. Anybody ever felt that burning desire to do something, you just did it. So when you have that and if you create something where your ultimate outcome is so powerful and you have a hunger to do that and you are on fire for that, there's nothing that's going to come in your mind that's going to stop you about achieving something. And no, I didn't have that because I was tired of being, homeless and broke and all those things. So I just decided I don't know how to do it. Let's try Google, you know, or let's try something else. And I just keep talking to people. If there's not a way, you'll find a way. Believe me, even with $800. I mean, I spent it. You should have seen how I spent $800. A little chopper. I mean, and then I had like a bunch of $1 bills, and I would pretend like I was a millionaire. And I'd be like, woohoo! Seriously, like you gotta dream big. You really do.
We got a question from Bobby Sue. She's asking that you clearly don't fit any of the inside or any box or mold. How did you learn to be yourself?
Just be. Nobody's in a box but the box that you put yourself in. You know? Absolutely.
We have another tweet asking, since some women struggle with self-doubt and insecurity, what are some specific ways you champion the strength of others?
I think that insecurity and self-doubt has to do a lot to do with what your basic human need is at the time. So it's just a matter of finding out what it is, to try to figure out where you're stuck, where you're at, and to be able to conquer that. If you don't have a clear outcome of what you want and what's stopping you, because a lot of times in my coaching clients, I realize that they have problems, and the problem they come to me at first is not even the problem that they had. It was something else, really, deeper, but it was right in front of them. And they're like, I can't believe I couldn't. But because it's there, but you don't know how to do that. You need to know how to realize, what's keeping you back, what's holding you back.
Are we loving this away? So I have another question from Sincerely Elka. Hopefully I pronounced that right. She's asking, and this is one of the questions I wanted to ask you. What advice would you give to people who are in the room and they are interested in empowering their female peers? And the tweet actually is directed toward men who are in the audience. They're looking to empower their female peers.
So for men to empower,
Yes.
Okay.
So generally for everyone to empower their female peers and specifically for men.
So you want men to empower females?
What advice would
Okay,
you give them?
okay, have men become like women. Because only then they'll understand us, right? And only then we can really know each other and work together to be equals and strong together and conquer the world together, right?
Dr. Freeman's here, and she's asking us, what is your ultimate life goal and outcome?
Great question. Is to help as many people as I can. As many people as I can. I was stuck in an environment where there was so much suffering, and I always wanted to, I still had nightmares up until college where I would go down there and try to save all the orphan kids, and I only ended up saving 3 to 5. And I would wake up in nightmares and crying because there was abuse and there was things that happened and I couldn't save all of them. Well, now I have the chance to be able to do that with people. And if I can reach as many people as I can, that to me gives me fulfillment. And fulfillment is probably the most important thing that you can achieve in life with your ultimate outcome.
Speaking of your childhood, you have another question. Did your brothers become successful as well?
They are successful in their own ways. But yes, they are. But you mean my biological brothers and sisters? Because there's 8 of us and there's like 60 of them that were adopted. Honestly, I don't, only through Facebook, but we talk. But as far as the breakthrough that I was able to do, not quite the same, but everybody's successful in their own ways. I have sisters that are doctors, sisters that are attorneys, brothers that are attorneys as well. So there's variety. Everybody had opportunity. The key is there's opportunity everywhere. Whether you miss it or you get it, it's all up to you. And that's really up to how successful you become.
We have another question, and for it to make sense, I'm going to add my part to it. I believe that there is no later. If you're going to see your friend or if you're doing something, it's either now. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. So the question asks, what are the 2 or 3 things that you know to be absolute truth? Like, I think that the absolute truth is that there is nothing.
I know that I have the absolute truth, totally and completely, that I am a strong woman, just as you are, courageous, powerful. Just as you are. That I know I have certainty about 110%.
One of the other interesting questions is that how did playing basketball sports impacted your personal and professional development?
There was a lot of discipline because when I went to college, I was given a scholarship to play basketball, but I was so good at it. The thing is, I didn't have any skill, like team skill, because I always played by myself, but I had the moves. Same for soccer, so I got a scholarship in soccer. I got a scholarship rowing crew. I got a scholarship running. They almost ran out of scholarships, but to be honest with you, I had to tell the running coach that I couldn't do it because I came to the United States and I don't know any English. So talk about uncertainty there. Talk about the suffering or the being afraid of what to expect or what to do. You just do it. You just learn. You raise up yourself, and you can do almost anything if you just focus and put your whole heart into it.
So you're rich. You're rich right now.
I'm rich at heart.
One of the questions is that did becoming a millionaire make you feel distant from the people you grew up with in Mexico, and how do you maintain those authentic relationships?
2 questions. I think that becoming a millionaire and more actually gave me more humility because I had the appreciation of remembering where I come from. And I always remember that even till this day, like I will be driving my car down the road and be like, gosh, I have a car. I didn't have this when I was in the orphanage. And just things hit me. You have to be so appreciative. I think one of the most powerful things that you could do as a business owner, as a powerful woman, and if you want to truly be successful, is you have to have rituals every morning. And the first thing I do is I do 3 affirmations or gratitude. I state 3 gratitude points that I truly appreciate in that morning. And they're very powerful because they totally change your psychology and give you strength to take on the day, aside from all the other things that I do. But it is so important to do that, to have those daily rituals that make you a strong, successful person.
I'm enjoying this front row seat. I'm just sitting back like the rest of the audience.
So a lot of us in this room are students, and those who aren't are even under even more pressure than we are. So one of the popular questions is that, what are some things that you do to cope with stress and just meeting a deadline?
Don't be stressed. Just don't be stressed. I think that I wasn't in a situation in my life where I was extremely stressed. And it's just the fact that the model of what the world is doesn't fit the model of your world, and that's why you suffer. So if you can get yourself out of that, and instead of thinking about deadlines, again, think about the ultimate outcome. Because if you have an ultimate outcome, and let's say you have a to-do list that's 100 things to do, instead of thinking, oh my gosh, I got to do 100 things, you can say, what are the 10 most top things that are going to take me to the next level today, and you focus on those. And see how the stress changes? Do you see that? So it's very empowering to know that. And I fell victim of the huge to-do list, especially having a company that big and running it by myself. So it was huge.
Something that I'd like to add, Shara, before we move on. I do know that stress is a major challenge for university students, but being able to shift your mindset of how you view the world. I know the Counseling Center has amazing sessions. It helps you equip you with the tools. I am a firm advocate of a little counseling goes a long way.
And our final question is about the importance of mentorship and how do we foster those relationships?
Mentorship with, okay. That's a very, very good question. And this is something that I learned in business. Because initially when I started my business, I couldn't get anybody to help me. And I felt like it was a blessing because I got to learn how to do salsa without anybody else's, know-how, like without repeating anybody else's mistakes. But the one thing that was my downfall is that even though after I got successful, I never reached out to people because I thought I could do everything myself. And that's one thing that I've learned, and it's so important to have mentorship. I have mentors now. It's so important to reach out to people that have done it, even though back then I couldn't reach anybody because nobody would help me. But once I got to a certain level, my competitors were my best friends, But seriously, my team were like, they're the cheese company also, salsa company, and we were hugging in trade shows, like we were buddies. But we got to share, what mentorship is, you get to share things. And I really believe that there's like this big pizza, and everybody's got a piece of the pie in the world. But you have to give each other, you have to lift each other in order to be able to grow, and that's how really mentorship works for me. But always look for people that have done it, and they're much, much higher than you are, so that you can learn the things that you need in order to become successful. And I'm sure that those people that I reach out to, they have people that are billionaires or higher than that also help them grow, and that's how really like the ladder goes up.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for all your answers, for all
You're
the
very
insights.
welcome.
I'd love to give the conversation back to Manila.
Thank you very much, Shari, for facilitating this for us. So, Maggie, those were some excellent questions, and I guess to wrap it all up, the theme for this second annual Y Symposium is Discover Balance, Create and Fulfill Your Purpose. What closing comments would you like to leave with everyone here, and especially the students who may be anxious about what the future may hold?
I believe that you should just stay a dreamer and become that superhero. Whatever your life takes you next, don't be afraid. You don't have to associate with not knowing and uncertainty, but you also need to figure out where you are. And then life is about like a circle, like a wheel. And there's facets in life that you need to tend to. Like, for example, your partnership, like with my husband, is one, right? My spirituality is another one. My family is another one. My friends are another one. And my coworkers are another one. So if you're not balanced in that circle, what happens when there's like a little hole in it? You're gonna have a bumpy road, right? So you have to kind of keep that in mind and nurture those things, and allow that wheel to kind of come out, give equal spaces to all those things to achieve balance. And it's so important, because what good it is that my business is doing so good, but my personal relationship with my husband is suffering. Then there's going to be suffering, because what could happen at divorce, right? So what could you do to keep that wheel going smoothly so that it just rolls and you're just going?
Thank you. That was an amazing note to end on. Maggie, on behalf of everyone here, I need to thank you so much for your time, your insights. Your conversation was invaluable. So I'd like to ask everyone to just give our speaker a round of applause.
Thank you so much.